All right, it is indeed a very, very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's another Tuesday, State of the Nation edition of the Tuesday of 16th May 2023. Tarehe ni 16 mwezi wa 5 mwaka 2023. Natumai kwamba uko salama and you're ready to start off your day. It's the State of the Nation edition of the 16th of May 2023 and begins right now. How many days to Christmas? Mwaka tena imeisha. A few days to Christmas, a few months to Christmas. All right. Kama kawaida, please, when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. Another like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. When you please like, when you like, we get to know that you're watching us. Another like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. So we're going to have a conversation, of course, on the recent happenings that have been happening, that happened this week. Only 2 days into the week. But a lot seems to have happened, of course, from the firing of Kemsa people to the president's brief, State of the Nation brief on his plan and the decisions that he has made, including taxation. Now, jana pia mafuta imepanda. Well, if you're planning to buy a car, maybe you need to buy a bicycle now, because it's easy to use muscle than to use fuel. So we've seen another fuel increase as well that we, of course, will be looking at it. What is the impact on the people? This is after even the G2G deal that the president promised that will help lower the fuel prices. So we want to understand what exactly is going on when it comes to fuel. He has said, of course, they reduced some taxes. But then again, cumulatively, we're still seeing a high price that is levied on fuel. All right, kama kawaida, we go tuombe. Naona kuangana meza kuamka mapema, tuombe alafu tukirudi basi nakuja kuona nani ameweza kuamka. Nani alienda Sunday school hapa? Kimani? Kamau. Unaweza tuombe?
So, let's pray. Father, in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we want to say thank you for giving us a new day. Your word says that your mercies are renewed to us each and every morning, oh God. And so we receive those mercies with thanksgiving. Lord, even as we get into the tackle, to just tackle the things that are facing this nation, we pray that we will have a good time with our listeners and our viewers, that, Lord, we shall educate them, we shall sharpen each other for the sake of this nation, because we are praying for the prosperity of this nation so that we may all prosper in it. We thank you, we honor you. In Jesus' wonderful, mighty name we pray and even believe.
Amen. Amen. Asante sana. Wale ambao wajaomba tafadhali mtoe sadaka. Anza na Whitney alafu Hilary hapa. Ni sadaka. Those who have not prayed, hebu naweza toa sadaka. Right? So tuko na Willie Kamau. Every time I call you Willie Kimani for reasons I don't understand.
It's because of the famous lawyer that was killed. Yeah, so many people tend to think that way. That name Willie and Kamau and Kimani.
Zinashikana sana. Yeah. Alright. But go see mheshimiwa. How have you been well? Wewe ndio mheshimiwa.
Oh, I thought you were here, you're mheshimiwa. Unajua when you have a dress, dressed like a mheshimiwa. And by the way, we need to change the constitution. If you're not elected, uache kuitwa mheshimiwa. Because this is a name that the people take advantage of. Mheshimiwa kuja harambee sijui nini. Kupatia kura. So it's a name that should be reserved only for those people in office. Yeah.
But the only way we can pour you is to call you mheshimiwa.
This is Kenya. Lazima kupare. But all in all, we thank God because of the political mileages we have made. Baby steps, we headed there, pole. Yeah.
Pole. Try. Hilary, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you keeping well?
Been well.
It's been a while. This is actually one of our guests when we started off in back in 2020.
Yes.
2020. No, not 2020 actually. 2018. 2019. Immediately after elections.
No,
it was 2019.
2019, yes.
2019, when we just started making noise on Facebook.
Pioneers. I did it back in Shags, farm, I remember. So this is my second time after thumbs up, good stuff.
So at least you've seen how far this has come.
Yes.
Because hata nilikuwa naingia tu nachukua simu unapiga live mahali huko kwa gari wapi. So yeah, it's good to also see you back again.
Yes, when you write a book, maybe someday yours will be the tackle. Maybe.
My friend yangu itakuwa kitabu, itakuwa encyclopedia. Habari inakuwa mrefu sana.
I have to make a contribution.
It is in a journey on its own. But you are?
Yeah, I'm
What have you been up to?
I've been here up and about. Yes. Aligning ourselves to the priorities of this government and seeing how best we can support.
Okay.
Yes.
So how have you been supporting it? Hapo ndio tunataka kujua, ndio tujue tunakuweka wapi kwanza. tunaweka kona gani, so that we know which corner we need to pin you in. Where exactly are you supporting the government from?
Of course, you know, I've been working under Waziri, the CS Transport and Roads. Yeah, still there supporting him here and there.
Okay. Sasa hapo ndio tutakufinyia. Kumbe sasa mzungumzaji wa serikali yako na sisi hapa.
No. I'm speaking on my own behalf. Not
since you are the closest we can see, the closest to the government, utakufinya wewe ndio waambie umefinywa.
Amicus, you know, there is a whole team that talks on behalf of the policies and the direction of the ministry. Yes.
Okay. All right. And of course we have Whitney. Good morning to you, Whitney. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And
also again, hiyo tunakusalimia tu kwa aje uko poa.
Niko poa kabisa. Also a good morning to the listeners, and I'm wishing them a happy day, and I'm well, thank you. Yes.
Bena bado uko opposition ama uliama? Yes, as naona watu wanahama every single day.
I'm a patriot of the nation. I've never been in opposition. I've never been in government. I'm just a patriot of the nation.
Even though umeruka Azimio. Mapema. Mapema ndio best.
I'm a patriot doing my civic duty.
So you're no longer in Azimio?
Gerald, isn't it too early to... I think you're ambushing me, please.
I'm not ambushing you. I just want to know.
I think it's an ambush.
I'm looking for...
I think it's an ambush. I'm a patriot. Okay. And everyone in Azimio is a patriot.
All of us are patriots.
Yes, that's how I identify myself.
Okay, so a patriot in Azimio.
No, she just said your members are patriot.
This is the first time she's struggling to say that she's in Azimio.
I'm a patriot.
All right, good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you. Yes, I'm very well. Thank you so much.
Karibu sana. Munga leta continue. Good morning all the way from Coventry, United Kingdom. Good to see you, my brother. Jane Mombi, good morning. And God bless. Good morning to you. Isaac Protile, good morning to good morning. Chila Wanjana Kesa, good morning. Tuned in from Naivasha. To Naivasha, Mambo VP, good morning. Ramochukuri, good morning. Gerald Bitok, Salimia, Ilaru Mesalimiwa. Ellen Chebet, good morning. Good morning. And I hope you're doing well. It's another morning, State of the Nation edition, 16th of May 2023. And it begins right now. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. But before that, I still want to remind you that if you are a farmer, kama wewe ni mkulima, hakikisha kwamba unapata chakula ya mifugo yako. If you are a farmer, kama wewe ni mkulima, hakikisha kwamba unapata chakula ya mifugo yako kutoka Fugo Feeds ama Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. We are giving you a guarantee of not only the nutritional formulation that guarantees your production and also earning in the market, but also ensuring that your animals are safe from any feed or toxins, any feed poisoning or toxins. So the technology that comes in ensuring that the production of Fugo feeds is up to international standards, state-of-the-art production mechanism that ensures that your animals have the best nutritional formula and balance, and also ensures that your feeds are very safe. You'll never hear about any case of animal toxicity or feed poisoning. Always sikia Fugo, lakini ukienda kuokota chakula msituni pale mambo inakuwa ni ngumu kidogo. So we have a wide range of products, of course. From if you are a chicken farmer, we have the chicken layer full meal formula that ensures that you get the best quality of eggs and also more eggs, and also your animals, your unit animals and the chicken are very healthy. We have, of course, the growers as well. If you are doing meat for chicken, kama unatengeneza kuku wa nyama, kama unawapea chakula, it gives you the best body weight and also safe meat for market consumption. Ukipeleka pale sokoni unapata tu faida ya pesa zaidi, na kisha kwamba pia wale ambao wanatumia wanakuwa na afya nzuri zaidi. Also we have a Fugo Dairy. Kama ni mkulima wa ng'ombe wa maziwa, please ensure that you can get to Fugo Dairy. Please ensure that you can get the best liters, the biggest amount of liters per cow, per unit cow. Unakamua ambako unachoka mikono. Ukilisha ng'ombe na Fugo Feeds, hata utaacha kukamua na mkono, unanunua machine kwa sababu kazi ni ngumu. Ng'ombe moja ukimkamua unakamua kuanzia saa hizi mpaka saa 5 hivi. Anyway, that's it. You get the best production from your units. And also if you're doing also beef, that is if you're rearing for beef, it's also a formula for that. Kama pia ni mkulima wa nguruwe, nimekuambia waacha tabia kuacha nguruwe mange kwa barabara. Be sure you can get your Fugo feeds for Fugo pig from Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited. That ensures that you have the best body weight on your pigs, and also it ensures that the meat is safe for consumption in the market. Kama kuna nyama ambayo ni very toxic and very poisonous ni nguruwe. If you are buying meat from a nguruwe which was raised in a bad way, not raised in a loving family like Fugo family, you ensure that you will be endangering the lives of those who are consuming the meat. So if you get your products from Fugo Feeds, you're not only guaranteeing your profits in the market, but also you're guaranteeing the health of the consumers in the market. Upeleka chakula ama nyama haiwezi kataliwa hata siku moja. Haya, Aisha Abdallah, good morning. Anisa Abdallah, all the way from Mombasa. Mambo vipi watu Mombasa? Assalamu alaikum. I hope you're doing well this morning. Good to see you. Looking at the newspaper headlines, Business Daily. Over relying on the authority of power will lead people to resent you. They will become timid and fear innovation. That is Mike Eldon. Why life gets better at 50? Okay. Sasa tumewacha kusema life begins at 40. Tumeongeza 10 years. Sasa life begins at 50. Okay. All right. Gentleman murdered by dam scandal set for CBK. Thuge was treasury PS when Kenya took fast $2 billion Eurobond expected to address dollar shortage horse, right? Finance, that's Dominic Omondi, the stories on finance. In under 3 years, Kamau Thuge has moved from a key suspect in the Kimori and Arrow Dam scandal to a state witness and an economic advisor to President William Ruto before being nominated to become the 10th governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, CBK, in one of the rarest comebacks for a senior public servant in recent times. Kamau Thuge is right there. A guy who says less. If you know Kamau Thuge, I swear I can count the number of people who have had Kamau Thuge speak. Kama umeaisikia Kamau Thuge akiongea inua mkono juu. Ama umeona mahali. I'm sure people know the name, but they don't know the face. So anyway, he's right there on the headline of Business Daily. Tika, what the reopening of Kenya-Somalia border means for the economy. Of course, there's been a reopening of Kenya-Somalia, which was presided over by the Deputy President, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua. So this is what the reopening of that border means. Kenya and Somalia yesterday agreed to reopen 3 border points amid this cloud of uncertainty on whether the benefits from increased trade and movement people will outweigh insecurity risks. Of course, one of the interesting phenomena or trends that have been happening in the recent past is a lot of Somalian members moving into the country, moving into Kenya to set up trade and all that. So with the reopening of these borders, I don't know what that portends for the trade and also security of the country. Court stops KRA from doubling excise stamp taxes. The court has ended manufacturers temporary relief after blocking the Kenya Revenue Authority from doubling excise taxes on beer, bottled water and cosmetics. Okay. M-Kopa secures a record shillings 35 billion for expansion. Solar asset financing firm M-Kopa secured shillings 35 billion, $255 million financing in new debt and equity from Standard Bank and Japanese trading house Sumitomo Corporation, among others, for expansion in sub-Saharan Africa. That is on the Business Daily, headline of the Business Daily. Let's look at Financial Standard. Kenya's credit rating headache grows. Latest negative outlook by leading firm is likely to further complicate the country's current and further borrowing plans amid a biting cash crisis, cash crunch. Very poor. I mean, the trend keeps getting worse right there. Looking at the Standard, villagers Mackenzie was chased from before Shakahola. Okay, inasemekana kama Mackenzie kuna vijiji ambazo tayari alikuwa amefukuzwa. He had been chased from some villages before he moved to his 800-acre Shakahola land. All right. Banks to auction properties has defaulted its 39 billion. Actually, this is actually a crisis. I've seen a number of people losing properties, especially vehicles and other assets. Mtu unakaa kwa barabara unasimamishwa, unaambiwa simama, hii gari pandisha kwa loloda. Na hivyo ndio unaanza kutembea mguu. The default on loans is becoming very serious as the economy continues to take a hit on Kenyans. Erdogan headed for turn-off on Turkey election. On tax, Ruto is between a rock and a very hard place. Zero-sum president was hard-pressed to explain the new levies he wants to introduce when the cost of living is at an all-time high, with experts wondering about the economic rationale of the proposed taxation measures. Okay, the 5% new income tax rate on Kenyans earning 500,000 per month from 30%, 16% VAT. Proposed VAT on fuel that will push the prices of petrol by up to shillings 15. 3% amount to be deducted on from salaries to go towards housing fund. Well, okay. Health, of course, you see what's going on in Kemsa. We'll get into that as well. LPS Kemsa boss has fired over shillings 4 billion net scandal. President has also disbanded the board and suspended 9 officials in health ministry. And Kemsa, Dr. Andrew Mulia, will act as the CEO. Business has last to feel hit of sharp fuel price increase. Okay, judges don't force learners to pray when in school. Amesema watoto wazilazimishwe waombe shuleni. Okay, interesting times. We have inchi mambo ni mengi. Okay, looking in at the People Daily as well. The People Daily, bloodbath at Kemsa, graft down. Ex-foils on LPS making a first top official in Ruto administration to be fired for corruption. LCS disbands entire board, picks new team to clean up drug supply agency a day after president promised to act. Team accused of bungling deal on malaria nets. Ruto, why I picked a goal at where he had the best CV despite opposition, says president. Okay, Diga finally nominated to be the new boss, the new money man at CBK. Suspended Martin Wamai, mambo ya Kemsa. Martin Wamai, Lenson Karaoke, Paulil Duya, Livingston Juguna, Charles Karaoke, Justus Kinoti, Cosmas Rotich, Anthony Chege, new board S. Bonomolo, Kiprui Bet, Jen Masiga, Jane Nyaguturi. Appointed, fired LPS Josephine Buru, Aya de Rungu Nyakera, is a board chair. Suspended CEO Terry Bana Ramadani, appointed Andrew Mulwa, acting CEO. Right? The Star Ruto Fire PS Kemsa board of attender. President appoints Rungu Nyakera as Kemsa board chair. Former PS Kamau Thuge picked for CBK. Same stories. Ruto, how I'll put money in your pocket to change Kenya. Okay. Serikali yazidi kufinya mahasla. Serikali yazidi kufinya raia. Gharama wa Kenya maskini waendelea kuumia zaidi, huku serikali ikionekana kupuuza maslahi yao na kuwabebesha mizigo mikubwa zaidi ya gharama ya maisha. Katika hatua ya kuendelea kuwafinya zaidi raia maskini, serikali imeongeza bei ya mafuta taa kwa shilingi 15.19 baada ya kuondoa ruzuku ya bidhaa hiyo na kufanya bei yake kupanda kwa 9.4. Habari kamili iko kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa Taifa Leo. Ukiliweza kulinunua gazeti. Maisha kuwa ngumu kufuatia bei ya mafuta taa kupanda kwa shilingi 15.19. Pia petroli na dizeli. Sakaja kiika wamulikwa na seneti. Hii ni baada ya kukaidi mialiko kadhaa. Wali ukurasa wa 4 wa Taifa Leo. Haya. Inter Milan roho juu ikikutana na AC Milan. Marudiano vigogo watacheza usiku vita vya UEFA. Kama wewe ni mwanashabiki wa kabumbu, haya ndio hiyo kwako. Maziwa ya Kenyatta kutoingia nchini. Bidhaa kutoka Uganda yakosa kibali kuuzwa Kenya. Okay. Hadithi ndio. Pastor Ezekiel kuzidi kusota. Mahakama Kuu yakataa kutoa agizo kufungua akaunti zake zenye mamilioni. Ukurasa wa 4 pia wa Taifa Leo. Kwa hivyo nabii pia Ezekiel ni kama mambo yanazidi kuchamuka hapo kidogo. Haya, Washira wa mama, Washira from Embu niko live. Asante Julius Rono Kiambu live. Kabon Sara watching live from Wasingishu. Mambo Kenya imekuwa hatari. False promises every corner. Okay. All right. Whitney, what is the state of the nation?
Thank you, Gerald, for that question. What's the state of the nation? We are in a terrible place as a nation because I think the most glaring story that has come out of this weekend is when the fuel prices were increased yesterday. We saw petrol go up by 3 shillings. We also saw diesel go up. We saw kerosene go up. That is because the EPRA scrapped their subsidies, and we've also seen that in the Finance Bill 2023-2024, President William Ruto and his team are planning to increase the VAT from 8% to 16%. So I think when you talk about increasing the VAT of fuel from 8% to 16%, that has a ripple effect on the economy. It's going to affect everything that we do. It's going to affect the cost of living. The cost of production is going to go high. When President William Ruto on Sunday talked about taking manufacturing from 7.2 to contributing 20% to the GDP in 2030, I highly doubt those are his plans, because once you increase the cost of fuel, you're increasing the cost of production, meaning manufacturers and also foreign direct investments will be directed to other nations where, the cost of fuel is at a reasonable price. So I think the state of the economy is, it's quite dire. I think as we progress, we need to look at the Finance Bill 2023-2024 in a more objective manner, and also to appeal to our MPs to get a delicate balance, especially in that place for the fuel subsidies being scrapped off yesterday, and also the VAT being increased. That will make the prices totally unbearable.
Okay. Hilary, what's the state of the nation?
As she has said, Whitney, of course we are actually in a turbulent moment as a country. Given the fact that the taxes are high, the prices are high, and the people actually the most affected are the the low-income households down there. But if you look at it keenly, there has been actually there was a lot of subsidies before this government, and then those subsidies were done away with, and now we are facing the real prices that are there minus the subsidies. If you look at the finance bill as she put it, 2023-2024 budget, the increase from 8% to 16%. Of course, we expect that there will be an increase further increase in the prices, and the Treasury is now collective views from the people, and I really do hope that there will be a middle ground when the discussion, that the debate comes to the floor of the House, so that we also don't subject our households to further increase in prices. There should be an insulation per se, as we give time for the economy to recover. The economy has been in its lowest, and there are a number of measures that the government is really putting in place to ensure that we recover, and we start with the agricultural sector. Gerald, if you read widely, because I have done a lot of research in agriculture, agriculture has proven to bring a turnaround to the economy. And if you look at the priorities that the government has done over the past few months they have been in power, subsidized fertilizer. So if we start injecting funds to sectors that will bring a turnaround to the economy, with time there will be a recovery, which of course at the end of the day will bring down the prices. At the moment it's turbulence, and as you know, you've flight. When you're facing turbulence, you cannot face turbulence throughout the flight. So at some moment, and I believe the president has a team that is really advising him on economic matters, we will recover and be back to where we are and focus on the plan.
So Mamoko, motivational speaker. The turbulence shall pass. Amen. Okay. What's the drill of the nation, Micheni or Willie?
Gerald, we are right where the rest of the world is. We're in a gray area. We can either be white or black, depending on the decisions that will be made by this regime. We are not exemptional. If you look at the geoeconomics of the rest of the world, great nations are struggling. If you look at the number of people who have lost a mortgage, who can no longer afford their mortgages, they are struggling. These are first world nations. I was reading another article that most of those citizens from such countries who no longer afford mortgages, they can no longer afford to heat their houses because of the power cost, and it's winter. They are resulting into living in libraries and churches where they can afford, where the system of is running for heat. So this is something that every other nation in the world is facing, and so we are not exemptional. So it depends with the decisions that President William Ruto is going to make moving forward, because we have a history of where we are coming from as a nation. We are coming from a place of heavy borrowing. Okay, if you look at all the subsidized goods and services by the previous regime, it was not through our revenue collection, it was from borrowing. And if we are not complaining of a borrowing, we have to complain of one thing, either of a taxation. I like the fact that my brother has brought about the issue of agriculture. As much as the president is trying to strike the balance between cutting tax and tax reliefs and other places are putting up a bit high, let's talk about the tax cuts. There is a tax cut, there is a tax relief on exports. Anybody who is into exportation business has been given a tax cut of 16%. That is to mean directly that the government has given you a golden chance to grow your company by 16%. This 16% VAT that you are remitting to the government is money that comes to you to help you kujipanga. Why? We are looking at the growth of foreign currency. If we really want to grow this nation, we have to balance between imports and exports. So if we can be a nation that exports, that organic food, and we'll be known for exporting good sugar, good rice to other nations, we will earn forex, a currency which will be able to balance the scales of our economy. Because Kenya, as we speak right now, we do more of importation. The sugar we consume, most of it that is branded with local companies' names. This is imported sugar. We import a lot of rice. We can consume our own rice if we put money into to these farmers, where we're able to feed ourselves. We're not doing more of export of imports, and that's why the president spoke about killing the manufacturing up to 20%. That means we have to do it locally. And so we are faced in a place that we have to be creative as a nation, as a government, not grow from outside, but grow from within. And maybe if time allow us, we can even look at the 3% taxation, but the president said don't consider it as taxation, consider it as your savings, because that money will come back to you. If we have time, we will dig deep into that and tell Kenyans why it is time we turn our crisis into opportunities.
All right. Yeah. But even with that, then with that contrast on the state of the nation, what seems to be agreed across board is that we are in a bad state of the economy. Only that now Willie has a bit consoled us that we are not alone. We are many.
Yeah, we are many.
You are not alone. We can cluster and feel warmer.
And misery loves company. There is comfort when many people are suffering.
Misery loves company. But then again, if you remember very well, these are the same things that were happening in the last regime. And now the government that we have in place was the government that was campaigning strongly against the measures that are happening. Fuel prices, and they're saying the fuel prices are rising because of cartels who are in the government and all that. And at that time, you remember Uhuru Kenyatta was talking about Ukraine and Russia, saying the wars in Ukraine and Russia and also the state of the global economy has been affecting the global prices of such commodities. But then again, this is a government that rode into power with a lot of promises to relieve the common mwananchi. Some of the reliefs, of course, includes the fuel prices that you are talking about that has continued to rise. Now, the contrast of what exactly we are feeling and experiencing now versus the campaign pledges and the promises in the plan, where does it then put the faith of Kenyans in the government? Hilary?
Of course, at the inception, we'll have, as the electorate, will have some doubt, of course, with the government, given that, the government was pro-hustler. We will start from bottom going up. If that is to go by, then there would be a lot of discontent. But Gerald, you are just into a new government with empty coffers, You have to reorganize, first of all. I have had discussions with some experts in the financial sector, and this is an ESA that we even have loans that are maturing weekly to a tune of over 50 billion weekly. If you look at what we collect per day as a country vis-a-vis what we need to repay maybe to the loans that we borrowed. And, these are loans that were borrowed to actually sort out the subsidy mess. We were subsidizing consumption, subsidizing fuel and everything. So at the end of the day, things would be rough. And I can tell you for free because I also interact with people down there, even the people who voted for this government. They have that jittery as to where we are headed as a country. And hopefully, as things go by, maybe in a few months' time or a year's time, we will have to see the changes. And the government needs to move fast to ensure that the pain cannot be felt as much. And I'm happy because my brother has put it clear. Globally, regionally, and now locally, we are doing badly. So it is something that is affecting even the households, low-income households. If you look at maybe other countries, South America, for instance, economy is bad everywhere. And for economy to take off, Gerald, a raft of measures has to be done. We have to accept the fact that the government in place has to really redo the mistakes and the mess that the previous regime did. And it will be a painful process that will take time. But I believe that even as they do that, there should be a constant reassurance that we will be back to where we are, and also looking at where we want to be as an economy, looking at our positioning in the regional block of this continent. Yes.
Right. Whitney, the same thing. What does it say about the government and if it has failed to live up to its promise to Kenyans? And the same people that were supposed to be given a relief are the ones who are now being hammered.
Thank you, Gerald. First of all, we know this Kenya Kwanza government campaigned on the Hustler platform, which was totally populist, as we all know. So they were appeasing to the emotions of the downtrodden. When we look at the actions of yesterday, where they increased the fuel, as I've said, of diesel, we know diesel is basically factories and PSVs, matatus. Who uses matatus, who will be affected most with these price increases is the common mwananchi, the hustlers, basically. That's what I'm saying. Meaning the transport costs are going to go high, food is going to go high because that food has to be transported. Transport, as I've said, will go high. When we look at kerosene also, we see people use those burning, they use kerosene to cook. So, and as we all know, President William Ruto has been the biggest champion for climate change in Africa. So once he increases kerosene prices, once he increases prices for diesel, he's basically taking us back to coal, basically taking us back to firewood. So that whole champion for climate change and also, reducing our carbon emissions, of course, we totally debunk that, and it's not true. Secondly, he's talked about...
Gas.
Pardon?
Gas.
I want to, first of all, that the increase of fuel, the cost of fuel, it negates that gas has to be transported. Mm-hmm. It totally negates that. So once you increase the price of fuel, everything in the economy goes up, including that LPG gas that is scrapped the VAT for. Secondly, my colleague here has talked about agriculture. I do believe that the Kenya Kwanza government has not done enough in agriculture 8 months into office. So kindly do not say that this is it's not a new government, that it's 8 months into office. When we talk about agriculture, I believe the biggest thing in agriculture is not fertilizers, because as I've said, fertilizers is not a novel idea. It came in when President Kibaki was in office. Empirical data shows that fertilizers, Kenyans don't even have enough knowledge about how to use those fertilizers, meaning they do not increase the yield of they don't increase the yields of the food significantly. Kindly do your research. So basically what I'm saying is agriculture, we're talking about irrigation. How many acres of land have been brought under irrigation? Last I checked, the government was talking about leasing land in Zambia, basically outsourcing our agriculture. So I do not know how that is, making our cost of living to go down, making the cost of food rather to go down, because as you've seen, the only intervention they have is fertilizers, and I've said that has minimal effect. And also leasing land in Zambia, we've not heard about the progress of Galana Kulalu. We're told 6 months in they'd start irrigation and all those things. We've not heard about that. So thirdly, he's talked about Kenya is not the only country in a terrible place. I want to say that categorically that is false completely. Our partner here in Tanzania, we've seen that President Samia Suluhu has been getting multinational firms to set up in that country. A lot of FDI, foreign direct investment, is going to Tanzania. And also in the borrowing sphere, we've seen that the credit rating of Kenya has been decreased significantly in the past 2 months, while the opposite the contrary has been happening in Tanzania. People, investors are having a lot of confidence in Tanzania and Ethiopia, meaning not all countries are going through the turbulent time Kenya is going through. Of course, we have the external shocks, but some countries are recovering faster than Kenya, and also we cannot compete where we don't compare. So you don't compare Kenya to South America and all those other nations. We're comparing with our neighbors. Many multinational companies have closed shop in Kenya to go set up in Ethiopia, where the cost of energy is cheap, the cost of fuel is cheap, the cost of electricity is cheap, and the same as Tanzania. We've seen that electricity has gone up really high from April. They increased the tariffs. April increased the tariffs. The cost of energy in Kenya is making a lot of investors to shy away from coming to Kenya because of the cost of doing business is extremely high.
All right. Picking up from the same place, Willie, and of course, we're talking about everything that is going up. Every single thing is going up. Nothing is coming down. Everything is, we talk about power. Very integral sectors that actually will help to spur the economy everything is going up, from the cost of power, cost of fuel, cost of food, everything is going up. Of course, you mentioned about the issues of waiver of taxes on exportation. The reality is, we as a country, we are a net importer. We are a warehouse economy. We are getting in a lot of things more than we are exporting. Our exporting days are long gone. They are dead. So, as they say, you cannot pickpocket a naked man. Who is going to benefit from this export relief? Because if I am to ask you, I'm sure you're not exporting anything. I'm sure he's not exporting anything. I'm sure she's not. What are you exporting? Avocado.
Not me, but people who are close to me. I've seen them exporting. So avocados is the
at least something that you can be happy about.
So I can see people
so out
flourishing.
of the four of us, only one person is exporting.
Actually, not me.
I am very happy to hear that.
And that was then where does it?
Someone close to me.
Yeah. There's no problem. I am happy.
Unless you know someone.
At
least you know someone. I'm actually happy that the person who is exporting, who is close to Whitney, is exporting agricultural product, and that's why we're insisting on, being a landmark of agriculture. Before I come back to you, Gerald, allow me to just write a reply to my sister here. Tanzania is one of the biggest exporters of gold in East Africa. They have an income. They have a foreign income on gold. What do we sell in terms of mineral resources as a nation? We struggle with exploitation of mineral resources. She's mentioned about Ethiopia having a cheap power. Ethiopia today is one of the nations that has invested so much on green energy because of their climate. Most of the season in their year is basically a dry season. The sun is ever shining there. So green energy is doing very well there. So Kenya, we have about 4 seasons that are, we have summer ones. So you can't rely so much on green energy here. So those are some of the things we are saying that we expect. We are discussing problems of this nation.
Kama watudanganya Willie.
No, these are facts.
Willie kumeanza kunyesha lini?
Wewe.
Tumepigwa na jua karibu
tumalize. Ya mvua.
The whole Horn of Africa. The whole Horn of Africa. You cannot separate the Horn of Africa with Ethiopia beats Kenya. The Horn of Africa.
Let's not go in geography because I also have facts on geography. It can rain and you still harvest energy on green energy while it's raining. This is geography. These are facts.
But this country is one of the countries that has a very consistent wind. Very consistent wind flow.
Which we are doing well. Give it
the geography, yes.
Yeah, we are doing.
When you look at solar, I think over a third of this country, we have enough solar power.
Where a third is huge.
I'm telling you.
People have gone off grid.
My
Do
friend,
you not know? People have gone off grid totally. That's why they're even coming
Bitok,
up with taxes.
If it's a third, you know what a third means? It means that if this apartment or this place has about 1,000 people, 300 people are on solar.
I want to tell you
lies.
That solar has many
let's
people
go
have
back to
gone
facts. Exactly. That is why William Ruto has to invest on green energy to give us affordable power. And he's doing that. There are plans to do that. Allow me, I think Whitney, I've given you precious time, where I didn't interject you. We are saying where we have come from a nation, we did not land yesterday in this country. We know all these things. We are discussing years and years of lack of planning. It's amazing how we expect President William Ruto to solve all these problems in his 8 months in office. I am playing the devil's advocate here, by the way. But give it to him. He is doing what he needs to do. The reason I prefer in most, I purpose to see the good in every government. President Uhuru did whatever he had to do to survive his 10 years. When Kibaki was in power, when Kibaki took over from Moi, I think no any other president will ever inherit a depleted economy than what Kibaki inherited from Moi.
Sure,
he did not complain. He went on, and in his first year, we keep saying that he gave us free education. But we must ask ourselves the hard questions. Where did this free education come from? Did he borrow? Did he collect taxes? Did he get Wazungus to give us funding for free education? That money came from somewhere. Okay, story for another day. And then Kibaki left Uhuru with a new constitution whose recurring expenditure was close to 1 trillion. Kibaki, the highest revenue he ever collected was to 800 billion. There was even a deficit of 200 billion just to for recurring expenditure alone. No development, no single kilometer of tarmac. So
pure recurrent.
Exactly. And so every president has had to leave, some skeletons in the closet for the next president. And so what is William Ruto doing? He has been left with a heavy burden of debts. William Uhuru borrowed debts with a dollar rate of 100 shillings, the highest 110. Today, as we service those debts, we are servicing those debts in dollar form, whose dollar rate today is 138 shillings. Do you know why we cannot default on China's loan? Because China's loan is people's money. It is not government's money. In China, people have an obsession with saving. So where they save, the government borrows this money on their behalf and lends to other nations of the world where they pay an interest. Because in China you are paid to save, because government will make money with your money and you make money with your money. And so we're looking at all these things holistically. We have to give William Ruto sometimes, and it is too early by then to start judging him. Okay. And I want to promise you this, by the way. I don't know about his second term, but I know about his first term. He will try as much as he can to succeed. Remember, he has a re-election to think about. And so he will not do campaigns on promises while he has been in office. He will give us a scorecard of what he has been doing for the last 5 years. And so I do not want to think that William Ruto, wherever he's seated, he's planning to fail. That's why I'm saying give the devil, I'm just the devil's advocate. Okay. Let's not expect William Ruto to fix 57 years of our problems and lack of planning in his 8 years of. In fact, what I expect from William Ruto right now is a plan. A blueprint that is clear, that everybody agrees on. And then in the next 1 year, 2 years, there is implementation of the blueprint, of the map where he wants to take this nation. And so planning for the lives of 50 million Kenyans, it's not something you achieve overnight. He's servicing debts. We are asking him not to borrow as much as Uhuru was borrowing. He has a budget to finance of 3-point-something trillion. Where is that money going to come from? If it is not from the pocket of Kenyans, and especially those who are working, where does that money come from? Do we expect him to continue borrowing? Bitok, economics, I love economics because money comes from somewhere. If money is not coming from mining, like our brothers here in Tanzania, it comes from loans, it comes from revenue collection. So where is our money coming in as Kenyans? It is the prerogative of those who are earning to take care of those who are not earning. I do not want to believe that the government wakes up one day and imposes taxes without being guided by scientific data. They know where people are spending money. They know where to tax. They know where to give tax cut to encourage people to invest. When you're giving people, when someone comes to invest in Kenya, you are giving them a platform to do more of exportation. They just need the geographic positioning of Kenya to do exportations in terms of so many things here and there, cheap labor, everything. So they're not necessarily coming to manufacture for the Kenyan market. They will manufacture for export. So when we give tax cuts on anybody who is planning on exporting, we give this nation a chance to grow by bringing in foreign revenue. And these are some of the things we also need to discuss. And that's why I want to say and insist that government does not impose taxes blindly. They have scientific data on where people are spending. We cannot demand the number of jobless people to pay taxes. And that is where they have to file nil returns. But these people have expectations from their government. So if you look at the number of the people that is carrying the rest of the nation, is a very small number. What do we do with this number? Let's see what they are spending on. I saw the other day something people were criticizing, that the government is going to tax fake beards. I want to believe yours are genuine. Yeah, mine are genuine too. So we are exempted from taxes. Do you know why the government is taxing luxuries? It is because of the hard times we are in. If anybody is spending money on luxuries, let them pay high taxes.
That's not luxury, man. Looking good is not.
It is a luxury, my friend.
Yeah.
At the state of the economy, it is a luxury. And I'm not. So I'm even wondering, Amma, Christine, whether this is. I mean, sorry about that, Whitney. It's the first time I'm meeting Whitney. We need to know whether you have paid taxes on your hair, whether it's genuine hair or it's not genuine hair. Or on a light note, though.
I shall pay my taxes. My 5%.
Please do. Be a patriot, as you say.
Be a patriot, like you say.
There's something I want to pick with Hillary, and it's of course about agriculture. Now, there's a report that was released by CBK, the Central Bank of Kenya, in April. That's in April 1. April 20th, thereabouts, I think. And it's a report on the uptake of fertilizer, the subsidy of fertilizer by government. And it said that only a record 29% of farmers in this country have been able to get a subsidized fertilizer, with over 70% still not able to take the fertilizer. Both of us come from, me and you come from farming regions. Yes. We know that by March you should be done with your planting. Yes. So if by April you're still talking about such slow uptake of fertilizer, then it means it's a problem. And now, this is what was cited as as the biggest reason why the uptake was very low. And it's because the government did not give the fertilizer on time. Just in a nutshell, a survey by the Central Bank of Kenya indicates that only 29% of farmers are purchasing subsidized fertilizer as the planting season starts, with some growers opting for the expensive commodity in agrophytes. The subsidized fertilizer is being sold at a maximum of 3,550 kg. CBK said farmers who are yet to receive the subsidy cited a lag between the date of receipt of the notification and the redemption of the forger. So there was a breakdown between when you're being told, yes, you can take your fertilizer, when you actually get a fertilizer. Yes. And many farmers opted to go and actually buy the fertilizer so that they don't miss out on the planting season. So when you're talking about the government intervention on ensuring that there's a catalyzed farm production, does the reality reflect? Does the reality match? The reality on the ground? Leo nasemanga vitu kwa ground. Vitu kwa ground zinashikana na story hapa juu.
Gerald, first of all, personally, I used the subsidized fertilizer. I got, not because of being close to anyone. There were depots. Actually, the application, the registration started at the chief level. So I registered. I gave out my details, the size of land I'm going to plant. And when the fertilizer came, I got my allocation. That is number one. Number two, there are areas with short rains and long rains. The primary focus for the government in the initial phase was to target the short rains areas. Areas like Western, there are those rains that come upward December to January, February. So areas with short rains, all of them received fertilizer on time. Indeed, there was a problem getting the fertilizer because the first batch came in and there were a lot of queues. People need queuing up for the fertilizer. And then I think it was because the first phase of fertilizer that came in was not enough compared to the number of people who registered for the fertilizer. Eventually, when you look at May, nearly all the farming households had gotten the fertilizer. Of course, in every sector, there are cartels. I'm being told of stories where there are some people who bought the fertilizer, colluded with the store operators, and there was a deliberate closure of the stores. So people had to go and buy the fertilizers from these people who had bought a lot of them. And I think it happened even in my constituency, but the leaders were on toes. And I want to really thank our leaders for coming out and ensuring there was a seamless flow. Nevertheless, Gerald, at the end of the planting season, every household got the fertilizer. And in fact, I even want to respond to Whitney, who was telling us that how does the government know the kind of fertilizer every household uses or every region uses? Actually, there are quite a number of extension workers. In fact, the fertilizer that we used in our in our farm, the region, it is the fertilizer that correctly works or performs well with the soil of our region. So when it comes to government having data on what fertilizer to get and where to channel them, they have the data. And let me tell you, Gerald, if you have seen or come across the photos online of how the performance of the cash crops are, be it beans, be it maize crop, they are really doing well. In fact, I can attest even in my farm, my maize is doing extremely well. And I can tell you for free, looking at the production that we will have this year and how consistent the rains have been, we expect a boom in the maize prices. But now the farmers are already asking, the way the crop farming is doing well, we will end up selling the crop at a lower price again because there will be a lot in the market. So I really do hope and pray that the ministry itself of agriculture is coming up with a way of ensuring that whatever was invested by the farmer is recuperated at the end, at the selling point, so that at least there is that value chain that goes on and on, so that whatever a farmer invests, he can be able to recoup later on. And this one will bring in turn a turnaround in the household economy. If you look at areas like Uasin Gishu, Elgeyo Marakwet, Nandi, we are not only focusing on just one single crop. There has been an uptick of diversification. There has been a diversification whereby you'll find a household focusing on maize crop and dairy farming and also horticulture. Because if you look back in history, as a country we used to export a lot of horticulture. Even when we were studying geography when we were young, tea was one of the key exports.
We used to say actually agriculture is the backbone of
yes.
economy. Yeah.
Then we went wrong somewhere. And now I believe in the plan that the president has. We want to regain our lost glory in agriculture. Because at the moment we don't have that output per se as a country to export and get in, the export value from our products. So generally, Gerald, my stand on the subsidy in agriculture, it is coming up well. And give this country a year, we will be doing well in agriculture. So the food component at household level will be done. Then we'll go now to other sectors.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. When we come back, before we look at Kemsa, I would want us to really look at the government-to-government petroleum agreement that the president had promised, the government had promised to help alleviate the pain on the pump. We want to understand what exactly was it about. 2 months post the importation. What has been the relief on the market? And was there any benefit, or it was supposed to make us even feel worse? Okay. Look at the comment section. Awakened movement KE. In my opinion, Kenya is a prime example of unfulfilled promises and skyrocketing fuel prices. I marvel at politicians who make grandiose promises during election campaigns. Jane MN, listening to this guy, the sky is falling. This is street talk, not reality. Okay, I don't know which one of that. Awakened movement KE, government's unwavering determination to keep us on our toes. Who needs affordable transportation and stable livelihoods when you can experience the adrenaline rush of wondering how much your next trip to the fuel station will cost? It's impressive how our political leaders have somehow mastered the art of making our lives. Let's embrace this roller coaster ride of broken promises and soaring fuel prices, for it's a stark reminder that politics indeed is the art of making the impossible seem possible and the affordable seem unattainable. Bravo. About the cheaper power in Ethiopia, please say no more. It is cheap because labor is cheap. And if labor is cheap, what is the living condition of those people? We are just propagating structural exploitation. Okay? Looking in as well at comment section on Facebook. Let's look who is up here. Sharon Komen, good morning. Tuned in from Mombasa. Say jumbo to Mr. Hilary Kiplagat. Kabon Sara watching live from Uasin Gishu. Mambo Kenya imekuwa hatari. False promises every corner. Julius Rono Kiambu life, asante, good to see you. Kiambu, mambo vipi? Thank you so much. I was around there weekend na kina Willie. Gilbert Kimatai tuned in from Kansas City, Missouri. Say hi to Mayor 028. Nasalima sana Mayor. Gideon Alan Kretch watching live from EMC. Asante. Gerald Kayura, good morning Gerald. I'm following the discussion live from the Netherlands and agree with most of the views from the panelists, and especially what Willie and Larry are saying, that the economic depression is felt worldwide, and Kenyans must be patient with the new government to recover from bad policies of the previous regime. Economic depression cannot be cured by legislative action or executive pronouncements. Economic wounds must be healed by the action of the cells of the economic body, the producers and the consumers themselves. Okay? Interesting, Paul Kipiego. What happened to the popularized government-to-government fuel deal? I thought it was to bring down the cost of fuel before we had a 16% VAT. I'm also asking that question to the panelists this morning. Karembo Edit, good to see you. I'm watching, but your smile and beard is confusing. You need Jesus. Karembo. Kirui, I think Whitney is what Whitney did is an online research used to make conclusion as far as the fertilizer usage is concerned. Go to the fields in Rift Valley where men and women have ventured in farming, and the production subsidy have made them to invest more in production. This is relative to the subsidizing consumption, which is very costly and thus increase the burden to the whole nation in future. So he's saying, yes, we are subsidizing production, not consumption. Chris Wakesa, what is your Chris from Malindi, Kenya, locked in? Will Kenyans make it with this life? Really? Someone who is already below the 2-third rule on the payslip, and here comes the 3% deduction. See, jameni. Let God intervene, otherwise it's not well at all. Immaculate, what was the need of registration of the farmers? Registration if the fertilizer comes in short. Then the government have intervention for the said cartels. All right, we pick on that fuel conversation, Whitney. Well, I know hakuna kitu chungu kama zile unanga kitu ya petroli inafanya krrrr. Naona imefika 2,000 na lita, 7 liters. Okay.
Thank you, Gerald. I'll answer the fuel question, and then will you kindly give me an opportunity to just give some rebuttals? Okay, so I'll start with the G2G petroleum deal. In my view, contrary to what probably the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua said, the G2G deal was only providing a deferred payment for 6 months. And that was because we know that oil imports account for a third of our imports. So what the government wanted to do is just to ease the dollar demand in the country, because we had seen that the shilling is still depreciating. It was depreciating, but it's still depreciating against the dollar. And we know that all petroleum deals are done through the dollar. So I do believe that the only relief Kenyans are going to get in the whole G2G deal was the ease of the dollar demand in the country. So that was never going to bring the cost of oil prices down. So that's my view, that it was just a deferred payment for 6 months, just to ease the dollar demand. Now, I've seen that my brothers here have so much hope in the government. So they've given their reasons. So I would like to give my reasons why I do believe that the Kenya Kwanza government still leaves a lot to be desired. Firstly, on Sunday, when the President William Ruto was having the joint media interview, he said that his government had saved 300 billion shillings from the budget of 2022-2023, which was 3.3 trillion. I would like to categorically say that as we look at the data from the ministries, departments, and agencies, that is not true according to the data that's available. What President William Ruto did was he just basically took more money from development. He took it to the recurrent expenditure and vice versa, meaning he reduced the development budget and he took it to recurrent expenditure. And as you've seen at the data, there was not much that was saved, and I do believe he actually exceeded the budget by 60 billion. Secondly, they're talking about, my colleagues here are talking about empty coffers. When the budget policy statement is passed in the budget, we normally see all the debts that are maturing. So be it weekly, be it monthly, the government is already aware. They're not ambushed that, a debt has matured this week. This is something that they should have planned for with the economic team, with Treasury, and also with Parliament, because as Parliament was passing the budget, they already knew all the debts that were going to mature. So all these things that they're saying, empty coffers and all those things, is just basically rhetoric. And then thirdly, I've seen my brother say that the government is increasing taxes because they do not want to borrow. President William Ruto, when we're seeing that the data from April, President William Ruto had borrowed upwards of 500 billion shillings. And also I do believe like a fortnight ago, he also borrowed 300 billion shillings from the Africa Import-Export Bank. So when you say that you're increasing taxes because you want to stop borrowing, we can see that he's doing both of them simultaneously. He wants to increase the taxes, but he's also borrowing. And once you increase the taxes for consumption, I want to tell you that there's some goods that are price sensitive. So like be it power or be it some items that are price sensitive, once the taxes are raised, the consumption will go down, meaning it's going to be counterproductive for the government to increase the taxes, because once I see the taxes have gone up, I'm going to stop my consumption of those things, be it power, be it some food items, fuel, you can't really escape it. So I can avoid those taxes by, just going for alternatives, or also some people do go for like illegal and also contraband goods just to avoid those taxes, meaning increasing revenue does not mean that you will get the revenues, which is 2.9 trillion. That's what they intend to get. It does not mean that when you increase the taxes, you will necessarily get those revenues, because some people will stop consuming those products and those services where the taxes have been increased.
Okay. Yes. Willie?
Yes.
Tukaambiwa kuanzia mwezi wa ngapi?
Yeah.
Tunaingia na deal na Saudi Arabia na UAE. Kisha kwamba bei ya mafuta inashuka chini.
I do not remember any government quoting and saying that fuel will go down because of that. On record, let's be honest with ourselves.
It was there. I can look up for you.
Look for it. Whoever said that fuel will go down. I want to agree with what she has said, that it was that the government was borrowing time to plan on our balance of trade when they came into a place of leadership, when dollar is at its all-time highest. We are spending more with dollar than we are spending with our local economy. Remember, I've said we are an importing nation. We import everything from toothpicks, earbuds, everything. And so the people in business who are doing this, they have to convert their Kenyan shilling into dollar at the rate of 138. William Ruto is servicing loans with a dollar rate of 138 shillings. So it was a time, it was to buy time so that we can be able to save on dollars to allow us to do other things, and more so on planning, so that on the 7th month, the government comes now with a clear plan. This is the way forward. This is what we have been doing. Our balance of trade on exports will be this. We will spend more on this. We will not spend more on this. And that is why all these things are collective. So you have to give tax cut in some places, others you have to increase taxes. On the issue of what do you call it? Let me give a layman's example in terms of President William Ruto borrowing more, probably, or even more than Uhuru in his first term. Is that if today I'm hooked to drugs and you want to help me, you cannot take the drugs away from me at once. You have to keep me in some levels of dosages just to help me withdraw. Otherwise, you're going to collapse. Your system is going to collapse because of withdrawal symptoms. Yeah. So William Ruto might even borrow more in his first and second year than Uhuru Kenyatta just to finance this budget, and that's why you see he's trying to balance. This has to go down. We have to borrow less on this. We have to borrow more on this, so that he's able to balance and able to bring in the very ambitious 3.4 budget. So he might do that for the next 1 or 2 years, but he cannot do that in his third year, fourth year, and sixth year. He will have to tell us, you said we will not do more borrowing, and we allowed you to borrow because we understand. That's why I like that she has said she does more of civic education, and just be truthful with people. Just tell them a government you did not vote for might be right sometimes, and a government that you voted for may be wrong. And so let's give credit where it's due, such that we are not just in opposition to fight everything the government is doing.
It was a secret ballot. How do you know who I voted for?
You were in Azimio. Okay, let's not even discuss that.
You are comrades.
Like you can't
Me
speak
and
about
you
my
were in the
choice,
same.
which was a secret ballot.
By the way, I was supporting Uhuru's project, and I did that proudly, but he failed. We had to go back to the drawing board. But let's give government where. First of all, why would I want William Ruto to fail as a president? Why would I take pride in him failing? I will have a share in his failures because he's the president of the whole nation. By the way, he might not necessarily be affected as a person and his businesses, but I will be affected, and that's why I want him to succeed. Okay, politics aside, time ya siasa itafika na tutajipanga kama tutakuwa hii side ama tutafika ile side nyingine. But right now, let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about how geo-economics of the world are affecting our economy. Let's be truthful with people. Let's tell them these things.
So, but now, where do you draw the line between being also truthful? Because maybe she's also being truthful. Truth is not only what you say.
There is a definition of
Please
truth.
be loyal to your country. Don't be loyal to the government.
I am loyal to my country.
You're not loyal. You're loyal to the government.
I will criticize government.
It is misplaced.
No, I will criticize government where it is necessary to do so. But as now, give me something substantial to criticize for 8 months. What am I criticizing in 8 months? Give me something substantial to criticize. Yeah.
All right. Moving on, just also for clarity, you had asked about who said the fuel prices will go down. Regarding Gachagua on the 14th of April in Kipevu, his terminal.
I must have missed that.
The promise that the fuel prices will go down. The high cost of fuel will soon come down. Hence, the OMs lower the high cost of living. So he promised
Gerald allowed me to say this. Let me let this off my chest in 1 minute or even less. Government does not wake up one day and impose higher taxes on commodities and services blindly. It has a scientific data that leads them. I said, if the number of people who are not paying taxes go beyond the number of people who are paying taxes, and by the way, these are people who audits the Juakali industry. These are people who make revenues. These are people who earn. But when it comes to filing, I know, I've been there, I've done it myself. We file nil returns, and you have had maybe an income of 40,000 shillings, but you have lied to your government. At what point do we become patriotic and give Kaisa what is due to Kaisa?
Okay. Hilary, what do you make of that?
It's good that we have an economist here. You see, the whole G2G government deal with the Saudi Aramco and the rest was to we were doing so badly with our dollar reserves. So actually the G2G, because petroleum is traded using a dollar globally, and we were doing so badly with our dollar reserves as a country. So the best way was to come up with a G2G so that we could recover our account for the dollar. And in simple terms, I even interacted with the DG EPRA, and he was telling me that it is basically, I would put it from what I got from him, EPRA was doing what was trying to assist us the way central bank would do, assisting the country regain stability in the dollar market. That is it. But whenever we are affected so much with the dollar reserves, Gerald, our economy is shaken. So when you stabilize the dollar reserve, that means, and the economy picks up, eventually we would see maybe prices coming down later on. So it is a long-term thing. We don't expect that prices will come down immediately. Even what our able deputy president was saying was, yes, we will see a reduction in prices at a later stage when the dollar reserves are stabilized, the economy is stable, then now we will see prices coming down, the pump prices.
So he was promised after promise.
The increment would have been worse.
Yes.
It would have been at maybe
But I want to-
20%.
But nothing has been reduced. I mean, if you ask me, and if you
That
are,
was never
No, it has gone up by 4 shillings.
we are very
Petrol.
honest. If we are very honest with ourselves, if we are very honest, you know, what you're talking about the reduction is not the reduction because we can now have cheaper fuel. The truth is, yes, we have cheaper fuel. We have a longer credit time to pay. So it means you don't have any pressure to pay at a single point. So you turn around on consumption, not just paying Kenyan shillings. So there's that price gap as well that you get to reap from that aspect as well. But the truth is, what you're talking about the reduction is the reduction on levies that we were paying. Not the reduction, because I think you also need to go back to economics.
No, that was actually my next point.
Because the reduction, if you tell us the fuel prices are reduced because now there's this deal, you'll be lying. It has reduced because the levies have taken off that you are paying on the railway. I think railway and railway majorly, and some relief on 2%, 2 point something percent.
I was coming to that talk.
So when you talk about even now, we are referring to, because Mwananchi most of the time would listen to what their leadership are saying. So when you have the top leadership giving a statement that we love the reduction of this and that, we love an increase of this and that, does it mean then that they don't benefit from the advice of economics? Because you say the government does not just make a decision or say things out of nowhere. Does it mean that then this government is not benefiting from the proper advice on economics?
Even Rome was not built in a day.
Because I'll be surprised if you want to tell me you know what you are saying, but Rigiji doesn't know.
You know, this is the thing. Even Rome was not built in a day.
Okay.
There's time to plan. There's time for everything. There's time to plan and there's time to execute. And I liken politics to in a layman's term as to where, let's say, Whitney is a single lady. I am a single man. Hillary here is single. And we both want Whitney. So whoever is able to lie to her the best wins Whitney. That's how politics is. That's why I'm coming. So kuna lugha ya kuweka Whitney kwa box. I will promise Whitney, I will take you to the moon. I've never been to the moon myself. When she comes into my house, now we start planning on how to go to the moon together. Okay, so what are you contributing? What are you contributing to us going to the moon? What am I contributing to us going to the moon? And that is where we are going. And that's why I'm saying, give me something substantial to criticize this government. Yep.
I think you
And I will be able to, if time is one of the things we can use to criticize this government.
I think you're not getting this right, Willie. My question is, the consumption, the public consumes information that comes from government.
Yeah.
And government agencies.
Yeah.
If a government says today...
There is a breakdown of communication in
the government
government.
says, if a deputy president stands today on a podium and says, we're receiving fuel, and says we're receiving this fuel and you're going to experience not only the reduction of prices of fuel, but also the lowering of the cost of living. Right?
I even like the fact that came from
when that comes,
a truthful man.
and then that comes, and then you see the opposite, the price of fuel going up and the cost of living going up.
Let us be
But
truthful.
there was no timeline indicator. Did he? Maybe.
But
did.
first of all, the fuel
I also think there is a government.
When you're managing
There is a government.
There's what you
communication.
understand. There's what you understand at your level. There's what he understands at his level. There's what she understands at this level. Then there's what Mwananchi understands. And this is the questions that are being asked. And we are saying, okay, we expected that at least we're going to get a relief on this. And that is what I'm asking right now. That then if that cannot be relied on, if we cannot count on it, even you are not giving us timelines. Can you exactly give us the timelines?
No, I
you
can't,
cannot.
yes.
So you're only giving us the promises that somehow, somewhere is going to stabilize and you're going to have a change. There is no guarantees on geopolitics that you're talking about in terms of global politics, the global economy. You are not giving us any guarantees that it will be better. So, I mean, just the same way it was last year, we talk about Ukraine and Russia. Now we have different excuses on why the local economies don't stabilize. So my biggest problem is the disconnect between government communication and where it gets to the people, and the people now getting different realities. Because I'm sure there's someone sitting and says, finally, we've seen this fuel. Even me out there, in a couple of months, I'll be able to save more shillings from my fuel consumption. Because the reality is, if you do your fuel consumption calculation per month, you'll be shocked. You'll think you're a tycoon.
I agree.
I'm sure an average person will be spending close to 60,000 in a month on fuel alone. So it means even that we can have that pain comes in more. So the biggest question will be then, if these interventions are not working, then where can we rely then that we can have a better, that we can have a better relief? That's my biggest question.
And Gerald,
do we wail and moan that is the case, or do we plan?
Let's have one person at a time.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want categorically, I just want to say that the taxes are not going to be reduced. The levies are not going to be reduced. The subsidies have been scrapped. They're also increasing the VAT from 8% to 16%. And also, I want to say that oil prices mostly they're determined by the global market. Yeah. The Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries is reducing their supply on petroleum products. What does that mean? The prices are going to go high. Meaning, if anyone is wishfully thinking that the prices of fuel or petroleum products are ever going to come down, they're totally wrong, because they will never come down unless the government lowers the taxes or the levies, because the global picture is not looking good. As I've said, the supply from the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries is decreasing the supply substantially, with so many, I think 1 million barrels or something like that, more than that.
Okay, Hilary.
I think, Gerald,
saying something else.
This is my take. You're very right when you say whatever is uttered in a public gathering or uttered in a policy document, how does it now translate at the bottom, at the village level? Yeah. You're very right, because how you sieve the information, Gerald, at your level and at my level, at Whitney's level, at Willie's level, is different. There actually should be a way of communicating that, and I believe that maybe the government is working on that. But nevertheless, I want to tell you something, Whitney. If you are privy to maybe some of the things that were happening in maybe the previous regime and compared to the current, it is more or less the same. It is just the difference is the shoe wearer. But if you look, how well would we have sustained the subsidy at consumption level for all this period of time? And given the revenue, you were talking about that even if the debt has matured, the government is able to know. Yes, you can be knowing that you have to pay 50 billion and you plan. And then what happens? There are things you can't control when it comes to aspects like revenue. That is why the government was so much concerned with the unrest, the civil unrest that was happening every week for the past few months. Because if you collect, let's say, 10 billion a day, and maandamano happens, and you collect 2 billion, that one affects the general trajectory of the economy of a country. That is why we're saying the government may not deliver on its promises immediately, but it has to take a process. And that is a process, however painful, at the end of it, it has an end result. So it all boils down to the will, the political and the economic, the political goodwill, as well as now the capacity of the households to take the shock. So it's between a rock and a hard place.
Okay, just in a minute. Then we get to Willie.
Just a rejoinder. When you first cited that the demonstrations are to account for probably the decrease in revenues, I want to see that March had, in the first quarter, March had the highest revenues, meaning that is not factual. Secondly, I would want to say that what's the role of a government to secure its people's lives and their livelihoods? How can you secure our lives when we cannot afford a meal? The government must intervene like other nations, either by giving subsidies, stimulus packages, or cutting taxes. We can't just let people into their own whims without, having a government that, is caring, just being callous and all those things. The government also has the option of cutting its expenditure. The government has increased its PSAs, it's increased the CSAs, it's increased its expenditure in all other ministries, departments, and agencies. They can cut back on so many things. So there's no way you can say that we have to deal with the reality of the global shocks, meanwhile the government can do some things to tighten their belt, because they're telling us to tighten their belt. What are they doing to tighten their belts when they're increasing the recurrent expenditure and going on foreign trips with huge delegations? We must be factual and truthful.
Right.
Really?
Bitok. We cannot wail and cry
that the geo-economics of the world are so bad and we don't have timelines when they are going to recover. But that gives us room to plan internally. Let's look for solutions internally. How do we grow as a people? How do we harness what we have as a people to take ourselves to the next level? I like the way Whitney is very factual on fuel matters. But what she's not telling you, that these first world countries have diverted from using, petrol and diesel consuming cars to electric vehicles. Norway is one of the nations today with almost a 90% conversion rate from energy cars into electric vehicles. They are saving on fuel. Most people are going green today. Let's think about going green. All right? Let's talk about that Norway. You say education is free, everything the government is doing there is almost free. But their taxation go up to 60%. So what you're left to save with and for your personal use is 40%. If today we ask Kenyans...
So what is personal use? If you have free education, you have free transport,
that's where,
what do you define as personal use?
That's where I'm coming.
And you have free housing?
Maybe you want to do other things, you want to invest, you want to save vacation. And that's where Wazungu, they do a lot of vacation. Let me come to that. If today we ask Kenyans to remit 60% of their net income,
and
to
you
the
give
government,
you give me free education,
yes,
you give me free health care,
yes,
take 100%.
That can be possible.
Because that's what you're spending on anyway.
That can be possible. That can be possible. But only 3% increment that goes to your savings, unateta, so that upate nyumba. Then where are we heading as a nation? Let me tell you this, why we need to look at savings. Saving, by the way, is one of the things that is going to save nations. Let me give you a clear example of China. China 30 years ago, I love giving this narrative because it's factual, it's true. Anyone can Google about it. 30 years ago, China was as broke as us. And so they called for a meeting and said, hey, you guys, we cannot be like this. The rest of the nation is progressing. So they called for a meeting and they asked, what advantage do we have over the rest of the other nations? And they had a eureka moment. They said, we have a huge population. So they started asking themselves, how do we turn this huge population into progress of the nation? Someone in the meeting gave another eureka moment. They said, we can give cheap labor to the rest of the world. Let's have manufacturers flock in China to do manufacturing, assemblies, and processing. And so they made bylaws in their houses of law that gave tax cuts on investors. That's why you would find a phone, still now, you will find a phone that is an American idea like iPhone. It is made in China, assembled in China. Why? Because of cheap labor. And so what happened, this high population that was jobless began to get jobs to do. And the companies, the mother nation of these companies that relocated their assemblies to China, they thought it's something itapita too. And then with time they realized, we have made a mistake. We would have given these companies tax cuts and tax reliefs because our largest revenue collection is coming from these private sectors. By the time they were realizing that, the mess had already been done. And that is why you realize everybody in China today, they made so much money that the government started telling people, hey, we can take this a bit further because we have so much money. Let's lend this money to the rest of the world. So me, Hillary, and my good friend here, we obsessed with giving government our savings so that money can grow in my bank account. So what William Ruto is trying to do with this housing project, and he's trying to tell you, hey guys, this is not taxation, this is saving. This money comes back to you in one way or the other. One of the things that grows a nation is when government is spending. We need to save to allow the government to borrow that money. And government also have to be very smart in terms of dealing with these things. Let them think from an entrepreneurial point of doing things. Government is not in the business of making profits. But if a house will cost the government 1 million to construct, like let's say a 2-bedroom, it has to be profitable enough, not too much like private sectors, to allow an income that this person who spent their 3% gets an interest on the investment that the government used. If this housing is planned so well, let me tell you, we will create so many jobs internally. From the guys who will supply cement, the cement factories, stones, everybody will be happy. These are jobs that will be created. And you say, at the time you are retiring, by the way, a research was done sometime back. I remember reading that research, that 70% of civil servant and private people who retire, most of them retire into poverty. And they don't exceed an age limit of 10 years after retirement. Why? Because they retire into poverty. Savings is not a luxury. Bitok. It is painful. These are called growing pains. If we want to grow this nation, we must experience some level of discomfort. We will not grow smiling ourselves. And that is why the president was very categorical, said, we may not overtax and borrow ourselves into prosperity, but we can save ourselves into prosperity. Let's save this money, let the government borrow this money, spend this money, and this money comes back to us when we need that money, when we are retiring. And so these are the things, that's why we are saying it is time for government to be creative. If you look at most governments today, how they are trading, let's say Brazil and Canada, they are coming to an agreement. We are going to trade with your local currency. You export this to us. We are going to buy it in your local currency. And as we import this from you, pay us with your local currency. That is what is happening globally. So as nations advance and make changes, we also have to think like that as Kenyans.
All right. 1 minute past 9 a.m. Before I get to Hilary and back to Whitney, how much do you earn on average per month?
Sorry?
How much do you earn on average per month?
Why would I have to?
Just on average, I'm not saying specifically.
I will not say.
Okay. Let's assume you earn 500,000. What is 3%? 500,000.
You do the maths.
Okay. All right. Where does the Chinese save? Where do the Chinese save?
It's their biggest bank.
Where do they save?
Is it Exim Bank?
Exim Bank.
Yes.
Okay. Where are we going to save?
This money is going to the government.
Okay.
Because it's the government. In fact, what William Ruto is doing is helping people to help themselves. And you don't consult people whether I need to help you. Help them by force. They will thank you later when they retire into wealth.
All right. 2 minutes past 9 a.m. Of course, how we get deep into the question of the 3% is being levied to pay for affordable housing. Now, Kenyans have continued to ask questions on this levy, and one of the facts that we have as a country is that over 80% of Kenyans earn under 1,000 and below. Population, 80% of Kenyans earn under 1,000 and below. And the reason why I was asking him is because I know very few Kenyans earn more than under 1,000. So they're asking the question of, when you look at all these other expenditures that come within, if you have a pay slip, everyone wants a pay slip, everyone wants a pay slip. There's what you see at the top and then what you see at the bottom. Usually 2 walls apart.
Balance available.
Yes, and so many Kenyans are asking, if we're having all these deductions, where does it end up to? And then again, the question of at what point exactly am I going to access this money and at what interest? So I think those are some of the questions that Kenyans are asking. And also the other question is, most of the Kenyans, the unemployment data is not something to smile about. Many Kenyans are very employed, especially young people. So maybe if we have to look at the skill market and how we can be productive on the Juakali and all that, then maybe we can think about how to have an healthy country in terms of, if you realize the country is, Willie had said earlier, we don't have gold, we don't have diamonds, we don't have petroleum. Our biggest resource as a country is its population and how much they're able to do and produce. So are we productive enough to say that we can actually tax this small population of people who are working until we pull our steps up? What's your feeling about the 3%, Hilary?
From my understanding of the 3% is, what the government is trying to actually communicate is, listen, we have to achieve the affordable housing aspect. We have options of borrowing, we have options of maybe going to PPP, and even if you go to PPP, what is the contribution as a government? Mm-hmm. So 80% of Kenyans earn 80% and less. Mm-hmm. 100,000 and less. Yeah. We have those people who have no income at all, maybe. They are the hustlers, as you put it. Mm-hmm. The government has promised the affordable housing, which is a basic, shelter is a basic thing that the government needs to handle. So the government is saying, we get 3% from Willie, we get the employer Whitney to give us 3%, we have a pool of 6%. or thereabout. That is maybe what I understood. Then we have a pool of a fund that will be used to develop the affordable housing. Gerald, you earn 500,000, let's say. You are not interested in the affordable housing. You probably are developing a house in Karen. But there is somebody else at the bottom of the pyramid who cannot afford to buy or afford mortgage. So the government is saying, let's get you 3%. We have a pool of the fund here. We use this money and develop the affordable housing. Then later on, if you are interested, you go register and get allocated to that house. So in a simple way, without maybe bringing a lot of burden to everyone, we can actually meet the needs of the houses in terms of using locally driven capital to cover a number of masses, yes.
Okay. All right. Whitney, what are your thoughts? And then again, what is the safeguard? Because in previous, this is not the first time we're hearing about the concept of affordable housing. We had the Kibera upgrade by Kibaki at that point. And the reality was most of those houses, as we have now, are not owned by the Kibera residents. They are owned by guys outside. You talk about Bomayango, there was a scandal. There was a scandal involving one of the former ministers. I don't want to mention names in the interest because I think that case is still in court. But there was a scandal involving a former housing minister on the Bomayango project in Gara, and someone, I think a businessman, on how those houses were actually shared among a very few people. So what is a safeguard as well to ensure that the people who actually end up accessing these houses are the people who really need it? Because I'm pretty sure that a house will not be kept waiting for me for 10 years. Since I'm saving. So what is the safeguard to ensure that people who benefit at the end of the day are the people who actually deserve it? Because the people driving, of course, who have the capacity to pay for this, because our cheapest house is 3 million, I think. 2.1 bedroom, 2.5. So 2.5 million. Let's even say 2 million flat. How long would it take a regular hustler to save, to be able to access that house at 2 million? And then again, if you look at the statistics on mortgage applicant and mortgage payments, there are a lot of mid-term mortgage cancellations in this country. A lot of people are losing homes because they cannot be able to finish up with their mortgage payments. So in this set, first of all, the safety of the contribution by these hustlers, and then again, the reality of what you, because most Kenyans start being productive, especially for men, maybe at 30 ndio unaanza sasa kuona hata kutupesa mahali kidogo. So if you're going to save for the next 20 years, you retire at 52. So you still have 22 years. So by the time you're retiring, will you be able to access that 2-bedroom? And what are the guarantees that actually the right people will get this housing? Because you cannot run away from the fact that this country has a housing crisis, especially urban cities. In Nairobi, for instance, over 60% of people living in Nairobi live in informal settlements. Yes. So you cannot run away from that reality that we need affordable housing. But the question is, how do you ensure that, yes, as we are doing these affordable housing programs, it ends up in the right people? What is the safeguard? And how comfortable should you sit after giving your 3%?
Thank you, Gerald. I would like to posit that it is not the business of government to construct houses. That is my personal view. Because first of all, we know that the private sector is in the real estate market. They're very present in that market. The only issue we have in Kenya is affordable housing. So how can the government, the only role of government in my view is to facilitate a conducive environment for business to take place. That is the private sector. So how can they reduce the taxes on the construction materials so that they can enable the private sector to take on that real estate job? That is it is my view that it is not the government's job to construct houses, because as you've said that many Kenyans earn less than 100,000. We've seen that NHIF has been increased to 2.7%. We've seen NSSF has been increased to 6%. Now we're seeing the housing levy. We also have pay, meaning in a pay slip there are very many deductions. I do not think that this is the time to reduce disposable income of Kenyans when inflation is this high at 7.9%, and also the cost of living is going high. So it is my view that also we've seen that many houses, not many, but like I do believe like there are about like 20,000 houses which have been constructed. We are yet to see the government give data on who the beneficiaries of these houses are, meaning there's a big accountability loophole there that the government still needs to come clean on who are the beneficiaries of the houses that have been constructed already. But it is my view that the private sector is the one which should be involved in the real estate market and not the government, especially seeing that they have raided the pay slips of workers very much.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. But then again, you still need affordable housing. So the government cannot sit and wait.
The government can reduce taxes on the building materials, as I've said.
Let's not talk about just reducing taxes, okay, on everything. 10 years, in a span of 10 years, we have had a real estate bubble in this country that burst even before its birth. It's birthed, eh? People come up with very nice ideas. They pull resources for people. Someone who has never held 1 billion shilling, they have 1 billion shillings because they sold off plans to people. And people put up a certain deposit to own these houses. Then that money, in Kikuyu we say, drinks water. Your money drinks water. Means the water goes under the bridge. The bubble blows. Today, if you look at the real estate market in Kenya, it's struggling. Not because people are not buying homes, but because of the trust that people are having with these private developers. These are facts. These are things that are happening. So, owning a house in Kenya is considered a lifetime achievement.
So you are saying that Kenyans have the money. What is missing is the trust.
Exactly, the trust.
Not at all. The thing people are missing is affordable housing. The houses are there.
That's where I'm coming.
It's not
real
the
estate,
trust
private real estate.
Okay.
We have had private real estate companies. The cheapest house they are doing, I know, is about 3.5 something million and is not near CBD. It is taken somewhere very far from CBD, and you have to spend more than 3 because they have to consider the cost of the land, the cost of producing that house. So, if you look at this 3% deduction, we have to analyze this issue holistically. Okay. The Kenya Kwanza regime must agree this is a project that is going to succeed. This will be a William Ruto platform for re-election in 2027. He has to be successful in this project. He must look at where his predecessor failed in that project. I remember there was a public outburst and cry when the housing minister went on TV and was asked, what is the criteria of owning this house? And then he started stammering and struggling. And then he got an idea. He said, we will play raffles, a lottery for people. He said, I contribute and then I have to play raffles to win. That is not going to happen. But if you look at William Ruto's well-thought affordable housing scheme, it is a win-win situation for the government to build affordable houses, to create jobs, and for low-income earners to afford these houses. I am sure the process will be like this. This is my projection. This is a discussion. By then, that needs to be put on paper in Parliament. What is the criteria of owning this house? Let's look at it this way. You either bid, you know, how we bid, like when we're buying these mitumba cars in UK and other places. You bid for a vehicle and say it should not go beyond this point and it shall not go below this margin. And because government borrowed this money from you to construct, it owes you an interest. So in the bidding process, we put a mark. This is the profit margin. It must not be exorbitant. It must not go beyond this point. So that we are able, whoever does not want a house, whoever will not be successful in the bidding process, can have his money back with a good interest when they are retiring, which will take care of them. That is a good thing. It's a good thing. We should be thankful because we are thinking about such things right now. Number 2, if a house is complete and you just newly employed, there is a process which we call rent to own. Okay? You rent to own for like 20 years. When you're done, by the time you're retiring, you have rented this government house, which is at a profit. Okay? So that this rent that is going to the government is going to the person who helped you build their house with their 3%, but they cannot afford to live in that house. So that by the time this person is retiring, they have good money in their pocket. I have worked in an insurance company. That was my first job very many years ago. We used to sell life policies that would be as long as 30-year savings plan. Someone saves for 30 years. They have not considered the rate of inflation. They have not considered all that thing. But if today I am not deliberate and intentional on saving 1 million shillings for the next 1 month, there is no luck that will give me that 1 million shillings. And so we need to come from a place of hoping for the best as a nation and planning for the best. We will not have these affordable houses by miracles. We will have to plan and execute these plans. Kenyans have to be very comfortable because there is a very well thought and crafted plan from inception to the time you are owning that house. Okay. And William Ruto must succeed where his predecessor failed. And this will be one of his topmost campaigning tools.
All right.
He will say, I've given you affordable houses, and that is how we have done it.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the comment section as well. When we come back, we wrap our conversation with Kemsa. Of course, we're going to Kemsa. Immaculate. All right. Ibn Sana, say hello to Hillary. Kijana yetu Edwin Kipkoech Kanji. This is great. I like the wisdom in your panelist. Say hi to Hillary. Kiplagat Benson falling from EMC. Chepto Chebon. Mayor 028 Edwin Kipkoech Benson, our future governor. Ndakwaga madakwa kimutai tazoanza kutufungua mapema.
Very nice.
The building is working hard. Angel Rafael Korir, the lady there deserves a standing ovation from fellow panelists. She understands what truly is going on in this current government. This government should wake up and take responsibility. Start working and recover from campaign hangovers. They say they won't subsidize consumption and they will instead subsidize production, which is a long-term solution. What are the short-term and middle-term solutions to the high cost of living? Question there. Dairas Mayor, the future is bright. Eugene Kipchumba Eugene. Why should the president talk of subsidies on fertilizer and yet he supplied 50 kgs of fertilizer, forgetting most hustlers need 10 kg and 25 kg? All right. And David Tanui, how will affordable housing solve the economic problems? And mind you, the poor Kenyans will benefit how on this issue of affordable housing? If you buy Eugene, Kenya has a deeper problem than the rising cost of living and mostly maturing loans. Okay? All right. Looking on YouTube, Picking Anjui, security, rule of the dump. If it can be measured, it can be done. And Kamau, do you research in your work? Stop speculation. We have cheap houses in Kenya, well managed by the intended beneficiaries, Kibera Zone, done by Slum Upgrading Department of GOK. So I'm going to bring in some people from the housing department to help us understand what this 3% reduction means and all question around affordable housing. So probably this week or early next week, we'll have people to come and tell us exactly how this concept looks like and what it means for you, a regular Kenyan who is contributing 3,000 at the lower level. Alan Kongo, good morning. Good morning to you. So next week, tutaleta watu either this week or early next week. Let's have an expert Let's have an expert opinion on what exactly is going on with the housing department and how exactly you'll end up benefiting from affordable housing. Now, so yesterday, the president cracked a whip after promising over the weekend on Saturday. He promised that he was going to deal with Kemsa and clean the house. Seems like he has lived through to his word, fired the PS, and also dissolved the board at Kemsa and reconstituted it for work and to move forward. After this 4 billion scandal on nets na malaria na mambo zingine mengi ambayo inaendelea pale Kemsa. But I don't know, is Kemsa jinxed? Because even the PS who has been fired is just a few months old. What happens really at Kemsa and Ministry of Health. But I don't know what this means. But for me, my big question would be, are we finally beginning to face corruption head-on? Are we beginning to roll the wheel of corruption? How much will you achieve from this? Because Kemsa, remember, you had a 20 billion scandal, COVID scandal at Kemsa. Nothing much has ever come out of that after we were given a 20 days notice on whether you'll have a report and you'll have people being jailed. Nothing much has happened, but I don't know what it means for you guys and also every normal Kenyan. This action, is the president finally facing corruption head-on, and are we likely to see the end of corruption in Kenya? What does this mean, and why do we keep having these scandals as well? Start with you, Whitney.
Thank you, Gerald. We saw that the president fired the PS, the board, in Kemsa. I think that is a welcome move by President William Ruto. It shows that there's political goodwill for him to fight corruption. By just this one step, we're being hopeful. We've also seen that the tone at the top really matters, because I do believe that impunity is the biggest challenge in Kenya, where people do wrong things, they commit crimes, and there are no consequences. So I think this is a welcome move, but I would like to see this go a step further. By involving the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, involving the DPP also, so that these people can be charged. I don't think firing them is enough. We must hold them accountable by taking them through the criminal justice system. So this is just the beginning, but we are just being hopeful. This is just me being hopeful once in a blue moon. But yes, I'm hopeful, but also I would like to see that the DCI and the DPP take this issue up, so that we see the people who've been fired, for them to be held accountable for their actions, if any.
Okay, all right. Hilary?
Gerald, one thing that you must be, or everyone holding a state position must be alive to the fact is that William Ruto understands how government operates, and he understands how things work, and he has information. I may not be privy to the reasons that led to these people being fired, but when you're talking of donor-funded projects, we are talking of WHO global fund of around 380 or 300 billion. By the time the donors raise queries, there should have been a misappropriation. Nevertheless, I want to say this. The action by the president shows his commitment. There was his personal commitment and the personal and the government commitment to fight corruption. This is just but the start. And it should be a warning maybe to all the state, to officers of the state, that as you work on those public offices, as you discharge your duties, try to be as accountable as possible. Because if there will be any misappropriation of funds or corruption in especially the ministries that deal with the basic lives of the people, the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, Water and Sanitation, I believe the president will crack the whip as soon as possible. So it sets a trajectory as a country on the fight on corruption. And I believe, I am not privy to the investigations, but as Whitney put it, it should not end there. There should be, for those involved directly, there should be now the prosecution and probably discharge of these people. Because this will also send a good sign to our donors that whenever money comes in, there will be accountability. I have previously worked in donor-funded projects, the EU, the UN projects, and these people are accountable to the last shilling. And if you want to build our donor confidence as a country, we need to really be up to the task to ensure that whoever is elected or given the position appointed to manage the public and donor funds should be accountable to the last shilling. And I believe, and I really do hope that the jinx of Kemsa will come to an end this time, with the likes of Irungu Nyakera coming in. I really do expect that he will build from the past mistakes of the people who are in Kemsa, and also catapulting Kemsa now to regain, of course, its lost glory. Yes.
All right. Willie, what do you make of this development? Are you finally facing corruption head on? And is it likely to mark the end of scandals? Okay.
Bitok, President William got into power a very tainted man by his political competitors.
Especially like in a way.
We were there. We had clear instructions. We had clear instructions to brand him as the most corrupt man in this country. And we succeeded doing that. But Kenyans decided otherwise. Okay. They said, this is the man we want. He has been tainted, but this is the man we want into power. You know, the good book says that whoever is forgiven much, loveth much. And so William Ruto owes to Kenyans that to prove his opponents that he is not what he was branded. William Ruto's major success mainly will be by people believing in him and believing in his government. Mm-hmm. And so that is a very welcomed move. Let him take it a step further. Mm-hmm. Let's see these people go through the judicial system. Let's see these people lose their properties. Mm-hmm. Let's see these people being subjected to very thorough audit of what they have vis-a-vis how much they have been earning. So let's see agencies, independent agencies like recovery teams, agency that covers money and proceeds from corruption, work very independently. Let them surprise us. Let us hear that a certain amount of money, a certain percentage of properties have been recovered from so-and-so who was corrupt. And by so doing, William is going to get into good faith with Kenyans, and people will not have a problem with investing in his government because tainted, he was tainted as the most corrupt man in office. And so he owed it to Kenyans to prove to the rest of the world he's not what he was branded. Mm-hmm. And so that is a very welcomed move. And President William, don't give up the fight on corruption. We are behind you. By the way, corruption, there's I don't remember who said it the other day. From an economic point of view, I would agree with them. But from a moral point of view, I would not agree with them as an economist. They said, if you steal money from Kenya, please invest in Kenya. You know, don't stock that money out. Let there be circulation of that money. From a political point, from a moral point of view, it is very wrong. But from an economic point of view, it is allowed. But let's not have these people stealing from the government.
Right. Okay, let's have people who say we are now begging, but if we don't, we get you, we'll jail you. I think we need to see more people going to jail as well, and so that we can, people can stop being corrupt.
Yeah.
And yes, wale wenye wameshaiba tayari basi muturudishie tu basi kidogo.
Ama walipe taxes ya what they are being charged with.
Sure, right. So it's a pleasure to have you. It's been a pleasure having you guys. Unless anyone has a tackle of the day. Do you have a tackle of the day?
My tackle of the day is to members of parliament. Kindly, as public participation of the finance bill is currently taking place, please take the views of the people very seriously. Go through the petitions that people have made, and as you go to parliament to debate, you must strike a delicate balance between what Kenyans can, the taxes that we can be able to shoulder and those that we are totally unable to shoulder. So the government, the parliamentarians must be wise. They must strike a balance and not allow the executive to just, they should not allow themselves to be rubber stamps, even though we know that they are. But this time is the time to redeem themselves. Otherwise, I do believe that the electorate right now, we are very woke, and 2027, we are going to remind them of their actions.
Okay. In 2019, we also told them 2022 we won't remind you. We won't deal with you. Okay. It is not postponed. Hillary, you're talking of the day.
However, things look bad. We have a collective responsibility from all sectors, from the government, from the wananchi, from the clergy, everyone. All of us hope for the best for this country. Okay. Let us put our heads together and see how best we can achieve and make this country the country that we all would yearn to live and work. So it all boils down to the patriotism that Whitney was talking about. Let us be patriotic and give the support as much as possible to the government, and hopefully we will see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
All right. I want to tell Kenyans that no growth is sweet. We must embrace and give space for growing pains, because if we have to grow this nation, we have to look at internal solutions which directly affect us, meaning we have to grow our country from our own pocket where necessary. And also pray for your leaders in offices. I love quoting the word of God because I believe by those principles and words. Pray for those in office because once they succeed, that's where our success is. And we must turn our crisis into our opportunities. And so we must embrace ourselves for some, growing pain and give ourselves that time and room. And maybe in 2 years' time, we will have something substantial to criticize this government about. Right now, we have nothing on to heavily criticize them with. Yeah.
Okay. All right. State of the Nation edition, the 16th of May, 2023. You've been having Hillary, Kiplagat, Whitney, Micheni, and William Kamau. We're talking about, of course, the happenings, the political happenings, and the state of the nation. Has been and is always been. So it was a pleasure to have you. But before you go, kama enda mkulima tukienda shambani. Sasa ni saa 3:30. So tukienda shambani, please ensure you can get your animal feeds from Fugo Feeds, Unga Farm Care East Africa Limited for best guarantees on additional formulation and also health and also market profit. Kwenye Fugo tunasema malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Fugo Feeds, malezi bora, mapato zaidi. Hadi kesho kwenye Siasa Wednesday na kutakia yote mema. This is the tackle and it ends now. Bye bye.